Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And it has been an amazing night. You have been together with me as we have been listening to President Trump's State of the Union address. He started, I clocked it in around 9:12 Eastern time, and he finished around 10:59. So that is definitely, I think, the longest one that's ever happened in U.S. history. And it really had a lot of accomplishments from the border. He talked about his economic successes. He also talked about bringing down prescription drug costs. There were so many things. And he also heralded, what I loved about it, guys, he was heralding American greatness, talking about honoring and also awarding, you could see live before all of our eyes, the Congressional Gold Medal to the head military guy who went in and led that chopper, which took out Maduro and brought him back from Venezuela to New York City. Also another veteran of the Cold War, another veteran of World War II, and also some of these extraordinary heroic angel moms. We also saw Erica Kirk in there. And who would forget, of course, the mother of Irina Zarutska, who was brutally murdered by a repeat offender on that light rail in Charlotte, North Carolina last year. And then also, there were some very just unbelievably inspiring moments. I loved when I saw the U.S. men's hockey team, the gold medalists, come on out. They got a huge cheer, a rousing applause. And that was just a fantastic moment. We're going to be taking your calls this hour. I can't wait to hear what you guys think. What did you make of the president's State of the Union address, a record-setting one, because he said he has a lot to tout in his record. And he really does when he heard him talk about all the domestic issues and also foreign policy ones. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Also, we're going to be hearing the so-called rebuttal. It's the response from the Democrats to it. We've heard a number of Democrats before say that it's like putting a toothpick in their eye and that they weren't even going to attend the State of the Union address. I call that completely un-American and completely uninspiring. I think it's reprehensible that so many of them decided not to even come and were doing their own sort of a counter programming, if you will. But we will be hearing briefly from Abigail Spanberger. She's the new governor of Virginia, to give her rebuttal to all of this. But here's first a little bit from President Trump. Here's a little bit of what he said in the State of the Union just a few moments ago.
We're also working to make it easier for Americans to save for retirement. And under this administration, we will always protect Social Security and Medicare. They are not protecting it for our seniors. We will always protect Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
He said, we will always protect the country. We will always protect Medicare. And we will also always fight for everyday Americans. By the way, he also went after Somali pirates. I want to play this one. This is Cut 24. And this is President Trump talking about the fraud in Minnesota. This was really a doozy. And of course, Ilhan Omar and a number of others were right there when he gave those remarks. Here it is.
The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA, and it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. We're going to take care of this problem. We are not playing games.
And you could tell it is no nonsense. Ilhan Omar didn't like that. She started shouting at President Trump. She was sitting next to Rashida Tlaib, who also didn't seem to like it. And yet, here they were talking about something so important. In fact, it's $9 billion worth of fraud. I understand we've got the Virginia governor, Abigail Spanberger. This is part of the Democratic response. Listen to this, guys.
People watching at home, 3 questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? Is the president working to keep Americans safe both at home and abroad? Is the president working for you? As I campaigned for governor last year, I traveled to every corner of Virginia, and I heard the same pressing concern everywhere. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare, energy, and childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across this country. Because since this president took office last year, his reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs. Small businesses have suffered, farmers have suffered, some losing entire markets. Everyday Americans are paying the price. And even though the Supreme Court struck these tariffs down 4 days ago, the damage to us, the American people, has already been done. Meanwhile, the president is planning for new tariffs, another massive tax hike on you and your family. And Republicans in Congress, they remain unwilling to assert their constitutional authority to stop him. They're making your life harder. They're making your life more expensive. They're even making it more difficult to see a doctor. Rural health clinics in Virginia and across the country are already closing their doors thanks to the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, championed by the president and Republicans in Congress. And tonight, the president celebrated this law, the one threatening rural hospitals, stripping health care from millions of Americans and driving up costs in energy and housing, all while cutting food programs for hungry kids. But
and you have been listening. That was a little bit of Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, who ran as a moderate, and the minute she got into office, started signing all this anti-ICE legislation, and certainly became much more of a radical when she took office. One of the things I just heard there at the beginning, where she said that the president is planning another tax hike. That's not correct. That's outright not true. But she said it with a straight face, and clearly her message is affordability, affordability, affordability. Yet the president even talked about in the big, beautiful bill, all the tax cuts that are in there. There's no tax hike. So where's the tax hike? That is an outrageous statement. And that's why we'll come back here for a little bit of common sense, guys, here on The Rita Cosby Show. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Dom in Minnesota. Dom, you've been listening with me to the State of the Union. What'd you think?
Holy cow, he knocked it out of the park, especially when he forced the Democrats to stand and applaud several times. And he came back with, look at them. That's the first time they're standing. You guys make me sick.
I loved it. I love that he called them out and said, you can't even stand for this. Like the moments before that moment, where I mean, here is Irina Zaruska's mother, and I want to remind everybody, she was the one who was so brutally stabbed to death by that repeat offender guy who got on the light rail in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he stabbed her. You could see the mother was in the audience. She was there in the chamber as his guest, crying her heart out. And if that doesn't make you, anybody with a soul would be crying watching that mother. And it was gut-wrenching for me to watch it. Erica Kirk was standing next to her. You could see her trying to comfort Irina's mother. And some of the Democrats, most of them, would not even stand, Dom, at that moment.
Yeah.
What did you make? That really disgusted me, Dom.
Well, I think whether it disgusted me or you, the nation saw the really poor performance people that they were. And I hope they take away from this saying, I mean, I'm not going to trust any Democrats, because then it's 80% of the people want voter ID. And I was hoping he would bring that up. New York City, if you were to clear the snow, borrow a shovel, you need 2 forms of ID. Go figure.
Yeah. By the way, I love that moment where he said the communist mayor of New York, he said he's a pleasant guy, but his policies are crazy. And he brought up the voter ID. The other thing I thought was brilliant, Dom, too, where he said even to the Democrats, when they would not stand about voter ID, something as fundamental as that, he brought up the fact, just like you said, he said 89%, and I've seen polls that say 84, 89% of Americans, and that includes Republicans and Democrats and independents, that they want voter ID. So he was looking at these Democratic politicians who won't even stand for that and saying, you're against the American public. The American public wants it, but you don't want it. Like how absurd are these people who won't even stand and applaud for that when even most of their own constituents are saying, yeah, we want integrity in the voting process. I thought, Dom, that spoke volumes.
Absolutely, because, especially when he spoke of Somali pirates without invoking Ilhan Omar, that made her mad and started yelling. That tells you she's guilty.
Yeah, she got upset about the Somali pirates line, like, how dare you call us pirates, I mean, come on. And then he brought up the how much money was ransacked, and yet she's screaming about Somalis as opposed to, I'd love to see her half as angry about the $9 billion plus that seems to be missing there. Dom,
she's
ahead.
Screaming because she's guilty.
Well, she certainly was screaming about the Somali pirates line, seemed a little more upset about that phrase than the $9 billion. That spoke volumes to me, Dom. I hear what you're saying there, my friend. Thank you very much, Dom. It was great to talk with you. Let's go to Vinny in New Jersey. Go ahead, Vinny, line 1. Your thoughts.
Rita, good evening. Of all the State of the Union addresses I saw, I'm definitely going to say President Trump hit it out of the park. But speaking from a Democrat side of this thing, that was probably one of the most disgraceful, disgusting displays I've ever seen for a politician, especially when all these people were there standing in ovation, getting medals. They didn't blink an eye. It was disgusting.
Yeah, I found that really disgusting too, Vinny, that these moments, even if you say some of the political lines you didn't like, but the fact that they wouldn't even stand for, a lot of them, for the U.S. hockey team. They wouldn't stand for the mother of Irina Zaruska. They wouldn't stand for angel moms. I mean, are you kidding me? Crime is down. That's a great thing to applaud, and yet they weren't applauding. Let's make sure that we get rid of these criminal, murderers, 11,000 plus. They weren't applauding that. Again, even the SAVE Act, they to me showed no soul. And you know what's interesting, Vinny? Last year, remember DJ Daniels? That was the young African-American boy, the teenager, that beautiful young boy who had brain cancer. And that was that moment, remember? And he got pinned there, I think, with the Secret Service pinning the badge. They didn't stand for him either. I mean, to me, it was shocking how they wouldn't stand for anything. It looked like sour grapes. It looked pathetic. And it looked un-American to me, Vinny.
It did, and they also showed a lot of people sleeping during this thing on that part of it. And when it was over, they ran out that door like it was the end of school.
Yeah, exactly. It was like ding, 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 ding. And yeah, some of them sleeping. Tom Suozzi was one of them, New York. He was caught snoozing city. That was not a good look for Tom Suozzi, who's one of the more moderates of the party. But he was snoozing off. They're calling him Snoozing Suozzi. You can see all over the place. Vinny, I agree with you. Final thoughts, Vin?
Final thought is, listen, we can agree to disagree. It's always been the case. But there should always be respect. And there isn't respect. And you wonder why people are the way they are. Well, if you saw that display tonight, now we know why.
Yeah, you know who I will say on a happy note, Vin, one of the heroes was John Fetterman, because John Fetterman was up there clapping at many moments tonight. And in fact, even when some of the Israeli hostages, when they all came home, there were some of them that weren't clapping for that. Yet John Fetterman stood up. He was applauding. There were a lot of moments where I was watching John Fetterman, often the lone Democrat, applauding. And bravo for him. I never thought he'd be the voice of reason of the Democratic Party, but he seems to be tonight. A really extraordinary moment and really disheartening, to your point, Vin. I think you're right. Democrats showed their colors, and it was very transparent. When the colors were red, white, and blue, they just sat down and would not even applaud for America. And that, to me, I think people need to think about that when they go to the voting booth. 1-800-848-9222. Everybody, we will continue your calls here on the Rita Cosby Show on this big State of the Union night when we come back.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, he definitely is the comeback kid, and President Trump had a lot to tout. I love when we play Rocky. I think that's a good one because he came out swinging like he was running up those steps in Philadelphia like Rocky was. And President Trump tonight touting all the enormous successes that he has had in just this short period of time since he has been back at the White House. And also what I thought was great, it was inspiring, his State of the Union address. It was also patriotic, and it showcased, I think, the best of America. Let's go real quick to Joaquin on line one. Joaquin, your thoughts tonight.
Good evening, Rita. It's a great speech. President Trump's speeches are always fantastic anyway. And I just love the way he takes it to the Democrats and he blames them. I call them the anti-American Democrats, and blames them for the problems that we're having. And I just wish that we had more Republicans who would be more clear as he is, because unfortunately the Democrats have too many people that really know how to speak. But it was a fantastic speech. And, it's incredible how he always, highlights people, people who the families, the victims and the families.
You're right. Like these everyday heroes. I love that, Joaquin, how he spotlighted everyday Americans. The woman who he said is going to get back now $5,000 more because no tax on tips. That was all such great stuff. We're going to talk to someone who was inside the chamber after the break, guys.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Stafford Township, New Jersey, where body camera footage that was just released captured dramatic moments of a person who jumped from a second-story balcony and into the arms of a responding police officer during a deadly house fire there. The fire, which investigators believe was sparked by lithium batteries, started at a home. The body cam footage shows the dramatic moment that the person jumped from a second-story outdoor balcony just as flames erupted from the home and jumped into the arms of the police officers. The officers said that both the person and another individual actually in that house were immediately rushed to the hospital and are now in stable condition and thankful to be alive from the brave and heroic work of our men and women in blue. Well, we are talking about this incredible moment that we all listened to tonight. The State of the Union address by President Trump. It was an hour, 47 minutes, and that makes it the longest State of the Union address in American history. Bill Clinton technically had the longest State of the Union. It was an hour, 28 minutes. And then President Donald Trump in 2025 last year, his address, which was technically a joint session of Congress, that was longer in duration, but not technically, quote, a State of the Union address because it's his first one of the term, of that second term. That was an hour 39, but he surpassed it today. And what we just heard was certainly in flying colors, very powerful on so many different levels, talking about the moment of uplifting the country, the moment of coming together as a country, the moment of also heartache in this country. He also touted all of his enormous success on the foreign policy front. Take a listen to what he said about ending wars.
In my first 10 months, I ended 8 wars, including Cambodia. Isn't it funny? And sick people. Cambodia and Thailand, Pakistan and India would have been a nuclear war. 35 million people said the Prime Minister of Pakistan would have died if it were not for my involvement. Kosovo and Serbia, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, the Congo and Rwanda, and of course the war in Gaza, which proceeds at a very low level. It's just about there.
And you could tell that he is one of those folks who said the world must come together. He even said on Iran, which I thought was another really powerful statement, guys. He said they cannot have a nuclear weapon, that they must be stopped at all cost. This cannot be accepted in any shape or form. And here he is talking also, this moment I thought was amazing. He was calling out the Democrats, saying to them, the reason we have so many problems in this country with the wide open border, including 11,000 of those who have been convicted murderers, individuals who came from other countries, pouring out of mental institutions and other locations, he said, is because of the wide open border policy that many of you in this room advocated for. That was an amazing moment. There he is in the room calling out individuals in the room saying, you Democrats, you guys were all for open borders. You allowed these individuals to flood into our countries. Here's a little bit from President Trump just a moment ago.
We can never forget that many in this room not only allowed the border invasion to happen before I got involved, but indeed they would do it all over again if they ever had the chance. If they ever got elected, they would open up those borders to some of the worst criminals anywhere in the world. The only thing standing between Americans and a wide open border right now is President Donald J. Trump and our great Republican patriots in Congress. Thank you. Thank you.
And now let's go to breaking news.
Breaking news.
Let's now go to Jesse Garcia. He is the chairman of the Suffolk County, New York Republican Party. And Jesse Garcia, you were one of the lucky ones to be there inside the chamber when President Trump was giving his State of the Union address, just wrapped up a few minutes ago. Tell us what it was like being there and the mood and what you thought of the speech.
Rita, it was great to be with you again. The mood was electric inside the House chamber. I was lucky to be here as a guest of Congressman Andrew Garbarino, who's also the Homeland Security Chairman, and my partner, Michael Torres, the Suffolk County County Conservative Chairman, was joining us today as well. And the president's speech was spot on. He used average Americans, heroes from our neighborhoods and our streets, to epitomize and demonstrate the importance of his policies, the policies that are making America stronger, more secure, more wealthier, and bolder again in our country's, in the world, quite frankly.
You know, Jesse, watching it and going through it with all our great listeners here, literally around the country, millions of folks listening here to the Rita Cosby Show at this moment. And it really seemed like two different worlds. Like the Democrats would not even stand up. Even some of them weren't even standing up at that great moment when the hockey team came out, or when Irina Zaruska, her mother, came out and was sobbing. That was so emotional. These were moments where how could you not stand and honor these incredible people? How did it feel like when you were there? Were you surprised that some of them wouldn't even stand up for things like that?
It's unfortunate, but I'm not surprised. We've seen the Democrats and their far left agenda and embracing them do anything they can not to give Donald Trump, our great president, the accolades as he acknowledges not just his policies, but the average Americans that have benefited or are heroes that have demonstrated the freedom and liberty and protected that freedom and liberty that we all enjoy here in our country. And so, honestly, I'm not surprised, but I think the president said it best. You know, he's direct, he's straight talk, he's from New York, so we speak it bluntly. He called out those policies and those political parties and Democrats that have tried to stymie the growth that he has helped resurrect in the last, year that he served as our president.
You know, one of the things, too, the moment with the Democrats, Jesse, Al Green was removed or left. I'm not sure which early. And then Ilhan Omar and the others, when he started talking about the Minnesota fraud. I mean, you can't make it up, Jesse.
Well, they can't make it up because here's the issues. What are they going to do? They're going to try and deflect attention away from $19 billion in taxpayer monies from all Americans being corrupted, being defrauded, and basically out the door with no benefit. These were going to political allies, allegedly, in Minnesota for organizations that were supposed to help those in need and the most vulnerable. Learning centers, that they can't even spell the word learning right. And, of course, the autistic community and our children to help them. But those monies weren't going there. They were going to those groups that were just want to perpetuate the failed liberal policies. And, of course, there's no bigger demonstration of failed liberal policies than Minnesota.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I thought was an amazing moment, Jesse, when he looked at the Democrats and he talked about the open border policy, he said, you were in the room. You guys were the ones who allowed this policy to happen over and over and over again. And it was your open border policies that sort of put us in this position, and called them out by name. And then also on the taxes, where he said, you guys all voted against the big, beautiful bill. One of the things also, Jesse, and it's always great to get the sense of what it's like to be in the room at that moment. What I loved about President Trump was he started talking about these real Americans,
Exactly.
Pointing out to the mom who's the girl who's going to get, I think, $5,000 more back because of the no tax on tips. What was that like? And by the way, how far away were you from any of those folks in the gallery? Were you near any of those, or were you lucky enough to be near the hockey players?
No, I was across from the hockey players. And I was on the opposite side of, the president's seating and where their family was sitting and those guests were there. Where I was near was a Marine that received the Congressional Medal of Honor for his injuries during the, operation in Venezuela that led to the arrest of Maduro.
Wow.
And the freeing of that country. I mean, it was a touching moment. I will tell you that, the room was electric. It was energized. It was enthusiastic. A great majority, an overwhelming majority of the gallery stood with the Republican majorities and Republican officials when they spoke about those issues specifically you spoke about. Closing the borders, the fact that there have been zero illegal aliens, migrants, and criminals crossing our borders for the better part of 9 months. The fact that we passed the largest tax cut in American history, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax for senior citizens, and no tax on on loans for American-made vehicles. These are real savings that are going to demonstrate and pump money into this economy that's already roaring back to life with inflation, I think, as the president points out, down to 1.7% as of last month.
I'll give you a chance also, Jesse, because you're so eloquent. Abigail Spanberger, who is the governor of Virginia, who did the response, the Democratic response, she started talking about how Trump's reckless policies are causing tax hikes. He's planning another tax hike. Where is she getting that from?
She's getting that from her own policies. The fact that you have those governors in blue states and newly minted governors, like here in the city of New York, Mayor Mamdani. What does he do? He wants to, provide a lot of free services, groceries, buses, and other services to non-citizens and illegal citizens and criminals. But at the same time, how is he paying for it? By taxing everyone almost 10% of a property tax hike. The Democrats are the party that taxes everyone, while the Republicans want to invest in America by giving the American taxpayers their money back so that they can decide their future and how to better spend that. And the best way to spend that, as you know, Rita, is back into our economy, creating jobs, purchasing goods, moving our economy and the GDP higher and higher.
And, before I let you go, Jesse, you sound like you're on a high. I'll tell you, it is. It is. I'm so jealous. I have been there during the State of the Union. It is such a cool thing. As you know, I was senior correspondent for Fox in Washington, so I got to spend a lot. It is. It's always like a gift. You have to pinch yourself. What was your favorite moment of tonight? And who did you run into? Just give us a little sort of a color of the room.
Probably the color of the room, honestly. To be there, and each and every one of the stories of the Americans that the president pointed out to, their challenges, the way they overcame those challenges, how good, sound Republican common sense policies have lifted them up and have made their lives better and made America better and made us all able to achieve the American dream. Those moments and times with the real Americans that he pointed out and he invited as his guests, that was the highlight for me.
Well, it's a highlight for us to be able to hear from you minutes after the State of the Union address. Jesse, I know you're right there still on the Capitol, and you got a lot going on there. We're so appreciative for you to call in. Jesse Garcia, thank you so much. Of course, the great chairman there of the Suffolk County GOP. Thank you, Jesse, so much. Lucky you. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And everybody, let's go to your calls. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn on line one. Judith, I'm so happy for Jesse. It sounded like it was a great night to be right there.
I want you to know, I want to say it very short, sweet, and to the point, and this is what I want to say. He was on the warpath. He gave those Dems the bloody hell. He gave those justices that were there that couldn't applaud either, gave them also what they deserved, and I felt the best line for the night that summed it all up that President Trump said was, he said, "What a difference a president makes."
Yeah.
And that sums it up.
That was a great line. Yep, I agree. I thought that was so great. What a difference a presidency makes. It was like within one moment, the border was sealed. And you think about, I watched that. It's so funny you say that, Judith, because I watched tonight thinking, boy, what a different State of the Union this is compared to Biden's State of the Union, where you thought, is he even going to get through it? Does he even have the energy to get through it? President Trump, who did the longest now State of the Union in American history, an hour, 47 minutes, you guys, beating his old record. Biden could barely get through an hour, remember, because there wasn't a lot for him to talk about, and he didn't know if he was going to be able to stay awake. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And everybody, we're going to continue your calls after the break on this big State of the Union night. What were the highlights for you? What were the lowlights for you? I thought the fact that Democrats would not even stand up on these moments of so many American heroes that were in that room, that to me was a lowlight, but I want to hear your thoughts as well. 1-800-848-9222. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a powerful story from North Carolina, where the governor there inducted 3 exceptional military veterans into the Military Hall of Firsts. One of them is Major General Elizabeth Austin. She's a member of the North Carolina Military Guard, the National Guard there. She became the first woman to achieve multiple military roles during her career, including being the first female general officer in the North Carolina National Guard. And of course, bravo to her and all of our great military men and women, and of course, their families. We love them and appreciate them so much here on The Rita Cosby Show. And everybody, America's heroes need your help. Donate just $11 a month to make an incredible difference. And all you have to do is help out the great Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Be sure to check them out at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, he was patriotic. He was boisterous. He was certainly a cheerleader in chief, if you will, the way he was talking about America, cheerleading the best of us, cheerleading military heroes, also parents who lost loved ones due to illegal migrants, those angel moms and dads. And the U.S. hockey team, boy, was that a moment for the ages when they came out with their gold medals and the whole world was cheering them, except for some Democrats. I think the Democrats look like a bunch of spoil sports tonight, especially the fact that more than 70 did not even attend. And the ones that were there, half of them looked like they were in a coma. A couple of them looked like they were sound asleep. They shouldn't, to me, you wake up, you listen to the President of the United States, and when it's something that's good for America, you should be cheering, because that's what matters. We're all in this together. What happened to civil discourse? Boy, oh boy. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Pamela in New Jersey. Go ahead, Pamela, your thoughts real quick.
Even though it was almost 2 hours, it was really well produced and kept my attention. And I'm glad that the Democrats, most of them didn't show up and took their nighttime NyQuil. Less distractions and more focused on the patriotic Americans and those who have been slaughtered by the Democrats.
Yeah, I thought, by the way, you're right. I wish they woke up a little bit more. The fact that they caught a couple of them sleeping, and then a number of them seemed like they were mentally sleeping, even if they weren't physically sleeping. Pamela, good points. And you're right. It was still riveting. For 2 hours, he could have talked another 5 hours, and I think it still would have been really interesting. It was powerful, and it was human. You see President Trump with his little side notes and his comments and then calling out the Democrats. There was a lot of passion, and you could tell he loves this country. Let's go to Norm in Brooklyn, line 3. Go ahead, Norm.
Hi, Rita. If you love America, it was an effective speech. To those who hate America, it was not effective. To the Democrats, what a classless rabble of ill-dressed, poorly groomed, unfit-looking bunch of yahoos I've never seen in my life. And I cite Rashida Tlaib's F ice button, wearing a keffiyeh scarf, and those dirty white resistance pantsuits.
Well, and the fact that a lot of them just sort of stood there and sat there and would not even clap. for the fact that the hockey team came out and got the gold medal and made us all proud around the world. I mean, that was an enormous success. That's not about politics. It's about America. And then when President Trump started calling out sanctuary cities and said you can't block law enforcement, I mean, where is the debate there? That makes common sense, but not to them. And then also when he called out the fraud in Minnesota, they didn't like that either. I mean, whose side are they on? They certainly didn't want to look like they were cheering for America, and that was a big mistake.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.